Good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan Loftus. I run national sales, new construction for Hotwire Communications. We are the 11th largest ISP in the U.S. We serve 17 markets, approaching about 800,000 customers. We're a digital infrastructure company, end-to-end fiber, serving master planned, HOA, condominium, mixed use, and enterprise customers. My first concert that I can remember, I think it was Boys to Men. I think it was around like 97. Nicole?
Nice, that's a good first. I think it's good afternoon now. Good afternoon, guys. I'm Nicole Scheiman. I am a managing director with Edens. We are a national, vertically integrated retail mixed-use developer, owner, and operator. We own about 100 places across the country, many of which have a grocery component and are predominantly retail-led. And the portfolio is about $7 billion in size. So we like to think of ourselves as though we're private, we're sort of a big player in the retail national space. Our Florida headquarters is based in Fort Lauderdale, and we have a lot of projects across the state, but in particular in Broward County. So excited to be here with you guys today. First concert for me, I'm gonna give my first concert and my most recent concert. First concert was TLC, but the most recent is much more exciting, which was Backstreet Boys at the Sphere. For all the ladies out there, I highly recommend you do this with your friends. Top 10 life experience.
All right. So my name is Ossie Simbel. I'm the chairman of Simbel DLT Companies. We're also a vertically integrated real estate development and construction company based in South Florida. Our focus is on architecturally significant mixed-use projects in South Florida. We care about design and architecture and wellness, sustainability, original art, technology. We have a major project in downtown Fort Lauderdale on the water that's part of the Nautico District. We built a 301-unit deal in Dania Beach called Oasis Point. Laguna Gardens we completed recently in Miami Gardens. We have a large project in Midtown Miami as well. My first concert, I can't believe I remember this, is Big Audio Dynamite, which was a long time ago. Does anyone remember that band? Unbelievable, but that probably reveals my age.
Jeff Hardin, I'm the CEO of Straticon Construction, based in the old Don King building in Deerfield Beach, Hillsborough in 95. So a lot of stories about the acquisition of that space. But we're a large general contractor based here in South Florida. We also have an office north in the Stewart area. We mostly build multifamily housing and very active in Broward County. So thankful to be here on the panel and looking forward to interacting with the rest of the panelists. My first concert was Van Halen. So I grew up in the Midwest and had a rock and roll older brother. So I got to go along with him. My parents signed off, and that was my first one ever.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eric Colazzo with Metropica Development. We are a mixed-use project in Sunrise, Florida. 2,500 residential units, 650,000 square feet of office, 485,000 square feet of retail. We just started our second phase. We broke ground. We created a community development district, and we just let our contracts, and we're out working on the site currently. My first concert, I'm a Miami native. I rode the bus over to Miami Beach Convention Center, and the opening act was Ohio Players. The second act was Kool and the Gang, and the third act was Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5, and I actually got to see the moonwalk.
Welcome, Russell. So we're just doing a little introduction about yourself and your first concert.
And my first concert, wow. Wow, I don't know if I can even remember that. I think my first concert, actually, I didn't start going to concerts until I went to Cornell University, and we had a place called Barton Hall, and we had a lot of people come. I think the first concert I actually was at was probably a Boss Skaggs concert. So quite entertaining and quite a learning experience.
So let's kick this off. Jeff, this is for you. Across Broward, developers are approaching the work-play concept in very different ways, depending on location, demographics, and existing infrastructure. As you look across the county, what trends best reflect where Broward's urban evolution is headed, and how do you see the emergence of multiple urban centers changing the way people live, work, and interact with the county?
Thanks for the question. It's interesting. We've been here 25 years now, headquartered in South Florida, and I think I spent the first 20 years on the beach or downtown or West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami. And today we're currently building about 3,500 units in and around Broward County in places I've never even bid projects before. Cypress Creek, Deerfield Beach, Tamarack, and other areas that for the type of work we're building, mixed use, 8 to 10 story wrap projects, you're gonna see areas like Cypress Creek completely change from a corporate center, and now there's gonna be 4,000 to 5,000 units in a very small area. So the change I see happening and needed is gonna be for sure the infrastructure to amenitize the projects you're building, and then to also look at the overall community and be able to have the restaurants, have the entertainment, because as mentioned on earlier panels, I do think it's convenient to have all of the entertainment, the dining, the recreation, all within 3 to 5 miles. And so I see a lot more growth needed in these areas where the housing is changing the community, and pretty excited to see the growth out in the county areas.
Very nice. So I think a lot of us here, I'm going to push this over to Russell. I think a lot of us here have been patiently waiting to see what happens to this Galleria project. For years, the Galleria site represented one of Broward's most prominent unrealized opportunities. Today, you're unveiling a completely different vision for those 32 acres in the heart of Fort Lauderdale. Where does the project stand today, and what can people expect from the transformation? How do you see the redevelopment reshaping both the energy and perception of Fort Lauderdale's urban core?
Great question. And I can tell you that the Galleria really was one of the most incredible land masses in all of Broward County, certainly in Fort Lauderdale. 32 acres, 2 blocks from the ocean, south of Sunrise, easy to get to, easy to leave. 7,000 parking spaces. We'll add on a few thousand parking spaces. But more importantly, we are making it a 24-hour-a-day community. It's going to have residential. It's going to be a place where you're going to want to go live, work, and enjoy your life. And we think and we look at the entire mall, the entire Galleria, as one big amenity to your lifestyle. It's a place where you won't have to get in your car to go anywhere else, and you can walk to, walkability. And at the end of the day, there'll be over 30 restaurants in the Galleria Mall and all of the surrounding property, and another 3,000 residential units that you can actually live in. I think what happened here is that there was the small minority of people, people who didn't want anything in their backyards, WIMBYs, that really caused this mall to stay stagnant for some 25 years. Because anybody who was there in the 80s and 90s, I mean, it was a mall that was on fire. People would go there to have dinner and lunch and to just meet other people. And it was a gathering spot, one that everybody was very, very proud of, a lot of shopping. And that's what we're going to bring it back. But we're going to bring it back as a 24-hour community. We're going to have plenty of places to work in the property, plenty of places to live in the property for all different types of age groups, all different types of individuals. And it will become that urban core, which it should have been 40 years ago or 30 years ago, and was denied that. So we're really excited about it. Where we are today, I think we even have some images that we're sharing with you for the first time. I don't think these images have been shared before. All of these are in a permit process that Fort Lauderdale needs to streamline. So I think they're going through an effort now of administration. I think they have great leadership, a great mayor, great commission. And I think for the first time, everybody's getting the feeling that you have to work together with the development community to make great things happen. And it's a complete change of view. So the people who were the strong minority were the most vocal. You don't hear their voices anymore because they're being drowned out by intelligent, logical, urban planners. So the professionals are finally winning in an area that has plenty of WIMBYs and people who don't want anything to happen. But if you can look here at the new Macy's and the new residential towers that are being added with the new landscaping plan, This is hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars being added to a community to make it that central urban location. Hundreds of millions of dollars, and we think that it will be immensely successful and one of the smartest things, led by a commission and a mayor that has the foresight to not know where the puck is today, but more importantly, where the puck will be tomorrow. So they have the foresight to see what is in the best interest of a community, and you have community leaders who independently are coming to that realization that, hey, we got this one wrong. Let's give this new developer an opportunity to show us what can happen, what we can dream of, and what the art of possibility is. And we're very, very pleased with that. Thank you so much for asking the question.
Yeah, it's quite impressive, Russell. This is quite the catalyst for the area, absolutely. Kick it off to Asi. Projects like Nautico District are helping push Fort Lauderdale's urban core beyond its traditional downtown footprint. And further along the New River, what does it take to successfully extend the city's urban fabric into areas that historically weren't viewed as part of the core? And how do you create opportunity between districts rather than isolated pockets of development?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. So, listen, when we bought that site a while back, there were no high rises next to us, or the urban core was, further away. But we saw an opportunity to buy 6.5 acres on the water in a downtown Fort Lauderdale setting, 620 lineal feet on the water, with the thought that the urban core would extend towards us. And today, you see high rises all around us. I think you can throw a stone and hit over 2,000 luxury units all around us. And I think our ability to create a neighborhood is drawn from the mixed-use components within the district. So we're going to have a branded hotel, branded condo, branded rental, yacht valet, urban yacht club, and several hundred rental units and world-class restaurants on the water. We have the Riverwalk, which is a great connectivity in downtown Fort Lauderdale. All around downtown Fort Lauderdale, you can walk along the river, except on our site now because it has never been connected. So we will finally complete the Riverwalk, which I think will be a huge bonus for downtown Fort Lauderdale. We have the water taxi site that's going to be right in front of our district. I think that's another way to connect the city, and it's a wonderful way to get around town on the water. I've done it myself a bunch of times. It's definitely superior to Uber. And you can certainly walk from our site, to the urban core. Within 10 or 15 minutes, you get to Brightline, Las Olas, and most centers of employment. So I think the key is to have something compelling on the water as we had, and then curate the experience, and then use the existing assets that the city has to connect to other neighborhoods.
Thank you. Now, moving west. Let's talk about Metropica. I know Eric and I have been working on that for many number of years. It wasn't too far from one of your old sites, right? Metropica is attempting something Broward historically hadn't seen at this scale, transforming a traditionally suburban, cap-oriented area that is true mixed use and urban district. Why Sunrise? Why such an ambitious vision? How do you see Metropica becoming the living room of Western Broward while leveraging major destinations like Sawgrass Mills, the Amarant Arena, and future tenant investments?
Thanks, Ryan. Most people don't realize that 595 is the 50-yard line of the population in South Florida. Half the population lives south between Broward and Miami. The other half lives north between Broward and Palm Beach. So Sunrise is actually in the center of the future growth of the area. When you look at the infrastructure, 595, 75, the Sawgrass Expressway, with the expansion now that the Turnpike Authority is doing on the Sawgrass Expressway, the addition of the new Pat Salerno interchange will give you easier access to the Metropica location, with the adjacency of Sawgrass Mills, and the Broward Arena, where the Florida Panthers play. We believe we have two huge magnets already as far as the destination. And what we're looking to do is basically provide a mixed-use project that will provide residential, retail, and office where you can live, work, play, and be at a location that is easily accessible. If all of you get up in the morning, you look at Google Maps, 95 is red, the Turnpike is red, Sawgrass Expressway, and 75 is typically green. The commute is much easier. So we believe that we're the alternative to the downtown districts that have occurred east of 95. If you look at most of the development, it's all occurring along the rail lines. And what we're hoping to do out at Metropica is give anyone who has a shorter commute, whether you're going to the Fort Lauderdale Airport, or you're going to the port, or you're coming downtown, it will be a much easier commute. And we also have the Sawgrass Industrial Park, which has 3 million square feet of office that's available, along with the office that we will add to our project.
Very good. Thanks, Eric. Keeping on the theme of Western Broward, I mean, Nicole, much of Broward's recent growth is focused on downtown Fort Lauderdale. Oh, sorry, can you hear me? Oh, okay. But we're now at Quarters and Plantation, Weston, other Western submarkets emerge as destinations in their own right. What is driving that evolution, and how are retail, restaurants, and placemaking helping transform traditionally suburban areas into vibrant community hubs?
Sure, thank you, Ryan. So, and you've heard, I think, a lot of these themes, both on this panel and earlier today, which is a general orientation towards this live, work, play sensibility, both in urban downtown cores, but also more recently in these suburban first-ring submarkets. And I think there's a lot of logic behind why cities and communities are evolving this way. I think first, consumers really don't drive more than 8 minutes on average for their daily needs, which means that these markets like Plantation, where we own a retail property, Weston, where we own a retail property, and others, the consumers in those markets, though they may love to come to the beach or to downtown Fort Lauderdale, that may not be the source of their daily trip because of the distance, the traffic, et cetera. And so what we've been seeing emerge is tremendous opportunity, particularly on the retail commercial side, to create really dynamic offerings within first-ring suburban submarkets across these growing counties. I think in addition to that trend, we've also seen, obviously, the growth of online retail. Today, roughly 18% of all retail sales are done online. Still, the lion's share is done in person, but I think the bar of what a consumer expects when they go out and have a retail commercial experience is much higher than maybe it was 10 years ago, because they could sit on their computer and order things online. And so I think the marriage of the 24-hour, work, live, play city dynamic with e-commerce growth has resulted in the need for much more dynamic development on the retail side to attract consumers and to give people what they want closer to their homes. And so, we've found a lot of success, particularly in Western Broward County, delivering much more place-making, consumer-oriented retail environments within Plantation, within Weston. Southwest Ranches, which was mentioned earlier, is another submarket, Parkland and others. And I think it has opened up a new set of opportunities from a delivery perspective, because those consumers really want something better. And those consumers are not necessarily willing to travel the distance they were willing to travel before. And so I think this creates a lot of development opportunity across really all of South Florida, but particularly pockets of Broward that were maybe historically overlooked or less developed.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Nicole. Russell, you've often described Fort Lauderdale as a treasure because of its waterways, boating culture, quality of life, and authenticity. As Broward becomes more urbanized and new districts emerge throughout the county, what should Fort Lauderdale's identity become over the next decade, and why are you so bullish on the county's future?
You're right, I am bullish on the county's future, and I'm really bullish on Fort Lauderdale. Part of the reason is that it's really the hole in the donut. I mean, Miami has been and is on fire, and so is Palm Beach. And what happened is, it just seems like Fort Lauderdale was overlooked. And I'll say it again and again, it's the most beautiful, pristine city on the water that you can imagine. And it just seems like it was in a bubble for so many years where nothing positive, no developments positive were happening for so long. And it just seems like people are now recognizing it. And I think that the commission and the mayor are now recognizing that in partnership with the development community, they can create greatness. And if you just look at what they're requiring and what they're asking for, I mean, they just designed a new city hall. And they didn't go for a typical city hall. They went for one that was architecturally outstanding on its own right. So their demand for excellence. And then you look at the parks that they're creating. Some of the parks that they've developed more recently, they're oriented in the right direction. They're oriented towards building a community, okay? The first step to building a community is wanting to build a community. And here you have this new leadership that is doing exactly that, creating parks, recreation areas. And by the way, there are so many parks. It's not just the waterways and the deep waterways behind people's homes that they can buy and keep their yacht behind, but it's also the parks, and they already have the state parks, even a federal park, that's massive. I mean, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to explore it, but many people haven't. What made Sophie so famous, okay? That's the southernmost community in Miami Beach. What made it was their park. When they created South Point Park, it was such a unique park, such a beautiful park, that people from everywhere wanted to live in that park, party in that park, even work in that park. You can't even imagine how many people take their notebook and their computers and sit out in the park just to watch all the other people that are going around there. And Fort Lauderdale understands that. They understand that excellence, there is no substitute for it. It's excellence in architecture, it's excellence in design, and you have to deliver as a community. It has to be the community leadership that works together with the private development group. And that partnership is what creates greatness. So now the city of Fort Lauderdale has archaic rules when it comes to permitting process. They need to work on that. That is the next step in the evolution of a great community. Right now, Jeff Bezos said it the best. It's inexcusable that a set of plans is not approved or denied within 2 days because you have AI. Everything can happen with AI. Today in the city of Fort Lauderdale, they have archaic laws that if you have an application in to do the east side of your building, you can't put an application in to do the north side of your building. I mean, it's just, these are the things that need to be corrected, and you have great leadership that's correcting them and desiring to their never-ending search for excellence. So I have great hope.
Well said, Russell. It's hope I've given us all hope on this panel today.
We're all in favor of 2-day reviews.
I think it could go a long way. You know, Miami next.
Well, you talk about Miami. I have to tell you, Eileen Higgins became mayor of Miami. And Miami, you know, the best processes in Dade County was always Dade County. It was a professional process where you didn't have to go to boards of neighborhoods and things like that, where they just dealt with development on a professional basis. It was the best process. Eileen Higgins came from the county and to the city of Miami, and she is changing everything. She is creating a new slate, and she's the type of person, and believe me, I would never have expected it of her. She is the biggest, wonderful surprise I've seen, where she is reinventing the partnership that the city has with the development community, where they streamline processes, where you can get permits, and the nonsense is stopped. You know, one of the biggest complaints of developers is that you file a set of plans. Today, there's 900 pages to even the simplest plan, and then they give you comments. Do they give you comments immediately? No, it's always at the 30 days, right? They give you comments, there's 400 comments. Then you respond to 400 comments. The next time they give you 200 comments. But 100 of them were not in the first set of comments. And another 100 of them were illogical. So, you know, then you respond to that, and they take another 30 days. And then all of a sudden you get 250 comments back, 100 of which was in the first time you sent in the plans. It's simply crazy, some of the processes that go on. And change is what's needed, and change is what came to Miami, and God willing, change is what's coming to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right? I like that. Russell for mayor. Moving, Jeff, as from a general contractor's perspective, many of Broward's most significant projects today are no longer standalone developments, but entire districts designed to shape how people experience a city. From your perspective, what separates a successful project from one that truly contributes to the long-term growth, character, and identity of a place?
By the way, Russell, you just explained my entire last 10 years. It's comments and permit delays. So again, I think it's understanding your neighborhood, understanding your residents. There's so much change and growth in suburban Broward County, and you've got wonderful examples of how to do it right and how it can be done better that are taking place all over the community. The panel before us, how passionately they talked about their project in how they're looking at every perspective, from the diameter of trees to the streetscape to the way they skirt their parking structure. I think each area is going to have its own unique challenges, but around Cypress Creek, where we're doing several projects right now, there's so many opportunities, like Nicole said, for new entertainment, new retail. People don't want to go to Fort Lauderdale every night for dinner. If they can leave their community and drive around the corner, and there's exciting new restaurants and there's opportunities for conveniences that are closer to home, I think that's going to make the difference for a lot of people when they choose where they want to live. And I see developers understanding that. I see people very intelligently planning out the projects, amenitizing appropriately for the residents. And it's really exciting because it feels like there's real strategy behind the developments we see. And as you can tell from this panel, they're very passionate about creating that place where people can live, work, play, and be part of a community.
Thanks, Jeff. Moving to Aussie. Fort Lauderdale has multiple transformative projects underway simultaneously, each creating a different kind of experience. Waterfront-oriented, hospitality-driven, retail-focused, or neighborhood-centric. As these districts emerge, how do you see Fort Lauderdale's identity changing, and what role does thoughtful development play in ensuring each develops as its own sense of place?
Well, first of all, I'm trying to recover from the PTSD that Russell just triggered on my last planning review comments in Fort Lauderdale, which happened a while ago, so I was over it until this conversation. Anyway, as far as, can you repeat the question? Because that was pretty traumatic. I thought I was over it. I really did.
Yeah, no worries. Everyone's shell-shocked up here, right? So just talking about the transformative projects in Fort Lauderdale. As these districts emerge, how do you see their identity changing, and what role does thoughtful development play in ensuring each develops its own sense of place?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Fort Lauderdale today is a much different Fort Lauderdale than we've seen in the past. Certainly, since 15 years ago when we got involved in Fort Lauderdale, there's pockets of great neighborhoods now. There's a lot of diversity. It used to be focused on Las Olas or the beach or a couple other neighborhoods, but there's so many great neighborhoods that are being created. Las Olas obviously is thriving and improving. Flagler Village as well is another great option. The beach, of course, is always going to be there with what Russell's creating. I think it's going to be very compelling. You've got the riverfront on the south side of the New River that I think also creates a new pocket that I think maybe is a bit more luxurious or secluded than the riverfront that you experience that's by Las Olas. It's less crowded, less intense, and we talked about the congestion in Miami. So Fort Lauderdale is a much more civilized option for many people. And I think with the restaurants coming in as well that have popped up throughout the city, particularly on Las Olas, it's a really compelling city to live in.
Yeah, we utilize that a lot, obviously, to attract talent to move to Florida, Fort Lauderdale being our headquarters.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, listen, I lived in Miami Beach, Surfside, for 20 years, and it just got so intense there in terms of the congestion and the lack of the quality of life, even though I was living on sands. But even just getting to the sand felt like a battle, having to crisscross all the pedestrians, the cyclists, the tourists. It just felt like a battle. It used to be 10 or 15 minutes from Surfside to Miami Beach, then it became 45 minutes. So we moved our family to Southwest Ranches. That seems to be the theme today. And our corporate headquarters from Midtown Miami. And it used to be in the design district, then it was Midtown Miami, now in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So we really believe in Fort Lauderdale. I think the future is Fort Lauderdale.
Understand, I'm on 85th and Collins. I'm going through that today, those pain points.
I was very close to you. I know exactly what's going on there.
So, Nicole, testing this over to you. We're seeing Broward evolve into a county and multiple emerging urban cores, each competing to establish its own identity. How important are placemaking and tenant curation in creating neighborhoods that feel authentic rather than interchangeable? And you can share examples of where that strategy is working particularly well for you.
Sure. So look, at Edens, we are in the placemaking business. We believe wholeheartedly in the uniqueness of every place that we execute and deliver on, and it all starts with the surrounding community. So for instance, we own a property on Federal Highway called River Market. It's a Whole Foods anchored center. And before Russell took over at the Galleria, it's been a tough couple of years over there prior to your ownership. And a lot of the tenants were really struggling there. And we were able to, specific to that community, identify some really special opportunities to bring Lululemon, Pottery Barn, Sephora. And this was at a time when those type of tenants really were not operating outside of enclosed mall settings. But given the needs of that community and the state of the comp set at that time, we were able to go and approach tenants like those and bring them to a much more traditional, convenient, open-air center right along Federal Highway. And I think for those of you who live in Fort Lauderdale or who have visited the property, it has become, I think, a pretty transformational execution in giving the downtown Fort Lauderdale community a really accessible, easy in and out way to do some of the daily needs that used to be a little bit cumbersome in terms of going to a larger enclosed mall. Another thing that we did there at River Market was we identified that surrounding community was very health and wellness focused. And because of that, we thought about strategically adding fitness and boutique fitness tenancy, but also outdoor green space, so that there was actually a place where these boutique fitness operators could host yoga classes outside, could gather the community together, both indoor and out. And so we think deeply about the curation of the tenancy, but also the execution of space, how we think about convenience and design in terms of the places that we deliver. And I think, in contrast, when we were redeveloping a property in Plantation, the needs of that community were very different. Our observation there was there really wasn't a lot of best-in-class food in the Plantation market historically, and most of those consumers were driving 25 minutes to downtown Fort Lauderdale for a date night. Other than J. Alexander's at that time, there really wasn't many places for a best-in-class experience. And so we led in that redevelopment with curation and food and bringing best-in-class local, regional, and national tenancy to really give the consumer in that community a place to go. And so we brought Burton's, which is a great regional concept to the southeast there. We brought Padrino's, who's an awesome local operator and did a beautiful build out. And we brought a great little local coffee shop. And so I think each of these executions and communities requires a character and an execution that's specific to those communities. And I think that's where we found success, is learning the community and then delivering on the voids.
Quite impressive. That's very nice. Eric, I'm going to toss this over to you. One of the biggest challenges in Western Broward is creating walkability and connectivity in an area that's originally designed for urban living. What have been the biggest hurdles in changing that market from both a planning and municipal perspective, and what are the residents and tenants prioritizing most as your project evolves?
Very interesting. I've lived Russell's experience, right, on permits. So one of the things that we did at Metropica, and one of the problems that you have in Broward County, is you've got so many municipalities that have different codes, different zoning codes. They all pretty much follow the Florida building code when it comes to construction, but their zoning codes are very suburban. So after working in the majority of the United States, also in Europe and South America, one of the things that I did was sit down with the planning and zoning team originally and started having discussions of doing an overlay district to avoid having to go back and creating our own code. So we didn't have a suburban code, we had more of an urban code. And Russell, you wouldn't believe the arguments about how wide a right-of-way had to be to create the right street, and where the curb lines had to be, and where the trees had to be, and where the sidewalks had to be, so you can build the building and have a storefront line. Nicole, you'd appreciate this. They want shade trees in front of the tenants, and the tenants want clean palm trees so they can see their signs. So one of the things that we did was basically create an overlay district. That overlay district allowed us to develop a master plan with a design guideline for the entire project. It still gives any developer who wants to come in and do a hotel, or you want to build a tower, or you want to build apartments, it gives you flexibility. But at least the streetscape, what's happening at the pedestrian level, we've pre-designed it, pre-engineered it, where the crosswalks are, where the face of curb is, the face of building. And that took a huge effort, meeting with the planning and zoning team and the building officials, including the fire department, because the fire department wants to make their turns with the fire trucks, right? And they want a certain radius on their curb lines. So I've lived your experience, and to this day, there are issues that we get pushed back on. But I think one of the things that Broward needs to do, and they also have the Broward County agency. So not only do you have the city agency, then you got to go to Broward County, and they have a different code than the city code has. So as a developer, we try to do is get through those frustrations early on, have the designs done, meet with the planning and zoning. We 3D'd everything, 3D'd all the models. We ran everything on SketchUp so they could see what was going on. And that was about a 4-year effort for the planning and zoning team to understand exactly how we wanted to create the project, and we wanted to go as far as the development and creating the mixed use. So that was one of our largest hurdles, is getting the suburban code changed where we can actually build an urban mixed-use project.
I love how the panels are showing the unsexy side of development today. Yeah. people don't really get to hear that very often. For Russell, for large-scale development sites are becoming increasingly rare in Broward County. How important are transformational redevelopment opportunities like the Galleria to the county's long-term growth, and what lessons can other property owners take from repositioning underutilized assets rather than relying on greenfield or development?
For sure. That's a great question. Before I get to the answer to that question, I just wanted to, I started talking about partnerships and how important it is for the community and the governance community to work together with the development community. But it's also, a lot of people have always asked me, he says, well, how do you do so much? You're nationally all over the place, you're in every gateway city, how do you do so much? It's all based upon partnerships. It's all based upon, in your development teams, having the right partnerships, whether it's with the engineers or the architects. It's all about how you work together. But most importantly, it's who you work together in your own partnership in the development of those sites. And it just happens to be that I've seen some of our partners from Insight that are in the back of the room. They are truly great partners. And when you start out in the construction world, you're going to find that you have to have partners in everything that you do. And you have to work together in a cohesive and a logical way. And I'm very, very thankful to have them as partners in Fort Lauderdale and all the projects that we're doing. I would also tell you that each and every one of you in this room is a partner. Each and every one of you in this room is a voice. It's a voice of logic, intelligence that needs to be loud and clear. We cannot let the idiots, the minority, the very strong minority, but they're very vocal, dictate what happens in the community. The community is for everyone. And I would say that. Now, your question, Ryan.
Yeah. No problem. We're talking about how important are transformational redevelopment opportunities like Galleria to the long-term growth, and what lessons can property owners?
I think the Galleria, and by the way, there may be one or two other assemblages that's possible in Fort Lauderdale. I'm not sure. But the Galleria is one of the most important. Why? Because it will be the largest. And it was historically the largest. It was a place that people went to have dinners and meetings and so on. And you know what? It never grew into what it should have grown into. Now is that opportunity for it to do. There will be bar mitzvahs, weddings, quinceañeras, every type of activity in some of the hotels that are created there, some of the apartments that are created there. It'll be a live, work, experiential opportunity to go shopping and find things that you're looking for, whether it's through the internet or not. It's just what? You go on the internet, you see something, you're not sure, let me see it in person. Well, there's a store there that you can actually go and see that product. So the opportunity is massive. Why do I think it's so important? I think it's important because it's something that you won't have traffic. Once somebody gets there, they'll be there. So it's really a traffic solver. It'll create affordability because it's being done under Live Local. And most important, the most important thing that you get out of Live Local is its speed to permit. And that's true in every other community, it seems, but for Fort Lauderdale. That's what we need to work on, speed to permit in Fort Lauderdale, the allowance of going for multiple permits at the same time in many different areas. And I think we're going to get there. So do I think the Galleria is extremely important to Fort Lauderdale? I do. And I think it's coming, and it's coming well. And I think the images that's shared here today will show you that it's coming well.
Real quickly, before everyone goes up and bombards these fantastic speakers for obvious reasons, want to give some recognition to our fantastic sponsors who made this event and really all of our events possible. So if you hear your name or firm you're associated with or you like, feel free to make some noise. Shout out Austin Fox Architecture, Bills and Sundberg, BMO Commercial Bank, Celerity Fiber, Cube 3, Greenberg Traric, H2M, Air Architects and Engineers, Halo Networks, Fission, Pacifica Engineering Services, PlanCheck Pro AI, PTAG, Straticon, Sub-Zero, White's, Vermont, our supporting sponsors, Best Roofing, Blue Stream Fiber, Campany Roofing, Enterprise Bank and Trust, First Citizens Bank, Neil Roofing and Waterproofing, Overton Construction and Consulting, Palm Build and Restoration, Peyton Bolin, Tenant Evaluation, Western Alliance Bank, and our media partner, Elevate. Make some noise for our fantastic sponsors and this dope-ass panel. Let's go.